Welcome everyone who's here tonight. We'll be looking at how to buy your first home in Ontario. I am a real estate agent and Luke is a mortgage broker. So we'll be here working together to get you to home ownership. A little bit about myself. I am a broker, as I said, but I'm also a full-time real estate investor. I came to Canada in 2011 and I came to study. So I was at McMaster University studying economics. And I bought my first property in 2014. At that time, I was still in school, but I graduated later. And I worked for the Ontario government as an economist while I was working on my master's. And, you know, my job was good, but what was good about my job also was that I could use my income to buy properties. So that's what we did. And after some time, my friends and family started asking about investing in real estate, and I decided to get a license to help them. So I've been a real estate broker for the last little while, and I'm always happy to work with people like yourselves, especially first-time home buyers, because I realize I have a lot of knowledge that I can, you know, bring to the table. And I know too, like not all the agents out there are good people. So I take pride in knowing that when I'm working with people, I'm just bringing skill set, negotiations, and a good, kind heart, you know, to help people buy their first home in Ontario. Joining me today for the webinar is Luke Robinson. Luke, his mortgage company, we work with them. We've been working with them for a while. I'll let you introduce yourself, Luke, but I just wanted to say why I work with you guys. You've been helping a lot of our clients with financing solutions. And I feel like the skill and expertise that you bring to the table is definitely something I could get behind. You also work with a lot of investors. I know that not everyone here is an investor. A lot of people here are first-time home buyers, but I love that you bring a diverse mindset to the table where you're able to look at the bigger picture and help people. We've had people who come to us and say, I'm buying my first home, but the goal is to go to 10. I'm glad that I work with you guys because you can look at this first home and structure it such that this person can grow their portfolio. So that is one of the reasons why I like working with you guys. So now I'll just give you the floor and you can start by introducing yourself.
Perfect. Well, Joseline, thank you so much for the introduction.
No
as you know, we love working with you as well. You know, and I think, you know, the first thing, you know, you're so great at meeting so many people, and the first interaction you have with people is they go, what can I afford? You know, what can I get? And I think that's why we have very good synergy, because, you know, we're able to get people that information quickly and inform them quickly, which is really what people want, right? So anyway, I am a mortgage broker. Me and my partner have a mortgage brokerage. You know, I've been doing this now for close to 10 years. It's been my only profession since I graduated at the University of Guelph. I got my degree in economics. So I've been in Canada my whole life, and I've been in the Tri-Cities area here, Guelph, Kitchener, Waterloo, for about 6 years now. It is my home. I don't know if I would want to live anywhere else. I truly love it here. And I've truly enjoyed, you know, helping people buy homes in this area. So that's really all it is about me. So we'll just jump right into the presentation. And today our main focus is going to be on first-time home buyers. So the information today is going to be, I would say, high level, not overly complicated, and easy to digest. We really want you to walk away from today's presentation with a fundamental understanding of the basics of home buying as a first-time home buyer. We don't want to overwhelm you with too many complexities. If you have maybe more in-depth questions, or maybe you're not a first-time home buyer, again, connect with Joseline or myself. Maybe we can go into more in-depth stuff. But for right now, let's just stick with the first-time home buyer information and go accordingly. So if you look at the slide here, you'll see that our first slide is about down payment, okay? And really, this is broken up into two sections, okay? The first one being insured, and the second one being conventional. Now, insured and conventional, the words of it, why they're called that doesn't really matter. The main thing you need to know is that an insured mortgage is a mortgage with less than 20% down, and a conventional mortgage is any mortgage with 20% down or more. Okay, so you know, between 5 to 19%, that's down payment. That would be insured, and 20 to 100% down is conventional, okay? Now, there is not a huge difference between this, but the main one being is that an insured mortgage has a max amortization of 25 years. If you're wondering what is an amortization and how does that affect me, an amortization basically means that if you do not increase your payments, if you make your basic low mortgage payments, you will pay off your mortgage in 25 years. So obviously, if you have a 30-year mortgage, it's going to take you about 5 more years to pay off your mortgage, but you're also greeted with a slightly lower monthly payment. So if you put less than 20% down, your monthly payment will be a little bit higher than if you put 20% down. So those are two major distinct differences between types of down payment that you can do. There's really just those two categories, okay? So I'm going to jump to the next slide here. Okay, perfect. So right here we have some calculations for you here. So you can see for a 5% down on your $500,000, pardon me, for 5% down on the first $500,000 in purchase price and 10% down for anything over $500,000. So what this first box is telling you is, what is the minimum I can put down? Really, what's the lowest amount I can put down, or what's the lowest amount I have to save up? So it used to be on properties up to $1 million, you could just put 5% down. The government of Canada has recently, in the last 2 or 3 years, changed this rule and increased the minimum down payment minimum down payments by a little bit. So now the minimum down payment for the $500,000 purchase price is 5%. Okay. You can see there in box 2 under examples, you can see $500,000 purchase price with 5% down is $25,000. Okay. Now, the new rule the government of Canada brought in is that anything over $500,000, you have to put 10% down on the amount additional to $500,000. So if you look at the second example in the second box there, you can see where my cursor is. For a $750,000 purchase, it is 5% of the first $500,000, okay, which is $25,000, and then 10% of the following $750,000, okay. So that's $25,000 for the first $500,000 and $25,000 for the next $250,000. So the minimum down payment for $750 would be $50,000. So it's important to keep that in mind. Now, for conventional down payment, it's very straightforward. If you put 20% down on 500,000, it's 100,000. If you put 20% down on 750,000, it's 150 down. So the calculations just get a little bit more complex if you're putting less than 20% down. But if you just refer to box number 2 there, these examples break it down pretty clearly. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to write them in, and I'll be happy to address them right at the end of this presentation. Okay, perfect. So the next question is, where can you get down payment from? This is a common question we get. So the number one place you get your down payment from is from savings, right? From your job and the money you've been putting to aside over the years. That's the first thing. The second place you can get down payment from is your RRSP. Now, this is often a very popular way to get money from your RRSP, because if you're somebody who makes contributions to your RRSP, you know that it's a tax efficient way to save money for your retirement. The only downside to your RRSP is that you can't take that money out until you retire, unless you're a first-time home buyer. This is a very big distinction. The government of Canada allows you to take out up to about $40,000 out of your RRSP, tax-free, to be used for a down payment on buying a home. Okay, this doesn't. There's no other way in Canada to take out your RRSP without having to pay taxes on the full amount in that fiscal tax year. Okay, so that's another benefit that the government of Canada gives you. There's a common trick that people like to use where, let's say you're looking to buy a home, you might actually max out your contribution room in your RRSPs to lower your income taxes for that year, just to pull the money back out right away and use for a down payment. There's a little bit of a trick in the system there, but it's 100% legal and 100% allowed. And again, if you have more questions on that, I'm happy to jump in. Coming to down payment, I would say the next big question that we always get is, can I get the money from family? Can family give me the money? Maybe I have family overseas. My parents give us the money, my brother give us the money. The answer to this question is yes, your family can give you money, but there is a little bit of an exception. Your second cousin twice removed can't give you the money for down payment. It has to be a direct family member. So in the eyes of the bank, who is a direct family member? A direct family member would be brother, sister, father, mother. Those would be direct family members in which you can get your down payment from. Now, if your family member is giving you the money, the bank will require a gift letter to be signed. And basically what that means is that the family is saying that they're giving you this money for down payment and that it is not a gift or a loan, that it has to be repaid. Okay. Perfect. Now, most people are actually not aware that there are a few more costs related to a mortgage transaction. And before you go buy a home, it's important to understand what those costs are. And what we call them are closing costs, as this is where it comes in. So closing costs are costs that are in addition to down payment, okay? So they're not included in your down payment. So there's really two big closing costs to keep in mind. The number one is land transfer taxes. You might be asking yourself, what are land transfer taxes? Now, the best way to think about land transfer taxes is they're a one-time sales tax applied at the purchase of your home. This is not to be confused with property taxes, which is the annual payment you make to the municipality. Those payments go to pay for roads, schools, municipal services, whereas land transfer taxes, it's best like, when you buy a can of Coke or a chocolate bar at the convenience store, they put sales tax on. That is what land transfer taxes are. It's basically sales tax on real estate, okay? Now, for a $500,000 purchase, if you look at example one here, land transfer taxes are about $6,475 to be paid at closing of your home. Now, I know nobody likes that number, but the good news is, as a first-time home buyer, is another benefit the government of Canada provides you. And that's that you get a $4,000 rebate, a max $4,000 rebate applied at closing. So as long as you're a first-time home buyer or you have not owned a home in 5 years, this rebate will apply to you. So again, it's applied when it's referred to as a rebate, but it's not that it comes back to you on your income taxes. It's applied directly at closing. So if you buy a property for $500,000 and your land transfer taxes are $6,475, they're actually going to be reduced to $2,475, which is a huge savings. $4,000 is a lot of money, especially for most first-time home buyers. So this is a program that we find our clients absolutely love, right? Now, the second expense is a lawyer. Now, I don't want anybody to worry. I know people always think about lawyers and high legal costs and going to court. This is not what this is. A lawyer is very important because, like your real estate agent, they help represent your best interests on this, right? Now, what Joseline would do is she represents your best interests on the purchase, and she makes sure that the house is a good purchase for you. She makes sure that you're going to get it for the great price. And there's a bunch of other things that she helps make sure that you get the best of, right? Now, the lawyer will help make sure that you get represented on the legal front, okay? They also make sure that they register the title of the home and they register the mortgage on the property. So, these costs are typically for first-time home buyers about $1,500 to $2,500. The more expensive the house is, typically the more the mortgage is, the higher the cost. So a $900,000 mortgage would have a higher legal cost than let's say a $400,000 or $500,000 property. But typically $1,500 to $2,500 is a good bet for what you can pay to your lawyer. Again, if you ever get to a point where you're buying a house, I know Joseline and I know some wonderful lawyers that we'd happy to recommend as well. Okay, the next big question we always get, credit. And everyone's kind of scared. Some people are scared to check their credit scores. They're hoping their credit score is okay to get a house. And I think the main reason people are worried about their credit is because they don't really understand how it works. And I can safely say I don't blame anybody for not understanding how credit works. This is not something we learn in school, even though it probably should be. So what is the bank looking for when it comes to credit, okay? So if an insured mortgage, again, if you can think back to our first slide, what is an insured mortgage? That's anybody who's putting less than 20% down. You need a minimum credit score of 680, okay? And to put it in reference, the highest credit score you can have is 900. So a 680 score is not even that amazing, I would say, of a credit score. For a conventional mortgage, if you can remember again our first slide, the minimum credit score is about 620. So that's with 20% down or more, the minimum score is about 620. There are some exceptions to this rule that can be answered maybe to your specific situation, but this is a general guideline to stick to. Now, the other thing people get very confused about is they do not know how to make their credit score better and or preserve their already good credit score. Again, nobody ever explains this to you, so there's no reason why you should know this, but I hope I can really help enlighten you on this side at this point. So first thing you want to avoid, late payments. Now, everybody knows you should be paying your credit cards on time, you should be paying your car loans on time. Everybody knows this, but most people don't actually know what is a late payment. So a late payment is actually where you do not make your payment a full 30 days after its due date. Now, I wouldn't recommend waiting 30 days after its due date to make your payment, but if you're ever in a moment where maybe you're cash pinched and you're concerned that you can't make let's say your interest payment on your credit card right away, you're not going to have your credit score dinged right away. It's not going to lower your score. It's not going to be registered as a late payment. So if you need to have another day or so to get your stuff together, I just want you to not panic or worry about that. Okay. Now the next thing is your credit limits. Do not leave them maxed out if you can avoid it. Okay. So what does that mean? So that means if you have a credit card or a line of credit, as an example, let's say that has a limit of $5,000. It will hurt your credit score negatively if you leave that credit line maxed out. So the limit is $5,000 and your balance is also $5,000. And it starts to really hurt you when you leave it that way for an extended period of time. Because what's that showing the bank is that you're really not, tending to your credit. You're not really not tending to your outstanding credit. It is completely normal to have an outstanding balance on your credit line. So I don't want you to think that if you go into the next month with some money on your credit card or money on your line of credit, you're going to get your credit score hurt. That's not the case. Normally, the best place you want to stay, if you have to leave balances on your credit lines, is to leave it at about 60% of your limit. If you stay around 60 to 65% of your limit, your score is not going to be hurt and your credit won't go down. So I hope that kind of enlightens you a little bit on, the do's and don'ts for credit, how to make your credit better. Obviously, the best thing you can do, another thing people think is, I'll have a good credit score if I don't have any credit. It means I don't open up any credit cards, I don't open up any lines of credit. That's actually not the case. It's in other countries, I know it's much different, or so I'm told. But in Canada, you're really encouraged to open up a credit card or open up a line of credit and use those things as much as you can, really. And here in Canada, we have such great rewards programs through various credit cards. Cash back on groceries, cash back on all these programs. And if you're planning on paying off your credit card at the end of the month, you won't actually pay the interest on it. So if you don't have a credit card or you don't have a line of credit, I would encourage you to go out and open up one of these accounts. As long as you're employed, a bank will give one to you. Okay. And use it responsibly, but use it, and it will increase your credit score. And it will show to the bank that you have a history of managing responsible credit use. So we'll move on to the next slide after that now. Okay. So income. To get a house, to buy a home, you need to have income. Now, we really have three main types of income here. And the reason we've broken it down into three types of income is because different types of income require different documentation. A lot of people, one of the first questions we always get when it comes to their income is, well, what documents do I need to show you? So this slide will teach you exactly what we'll be asking you to prove your income. So the first type of income we have here is a salary, right? That is a negotiated contractual pay every year that your job pays out, okay? So the three things that we'll be asking you for is your number one, your job letter. Not to be confused with your job offer, which everybody gets when they get a job, but a job letter. Now, this is just a one-page letter that's going to be provided to you probably by your manager or perhaps HR if it's a larger company. And all it will say is, I'll use Joseline example. Joseline, works at this company. She's been here for this amount of time. Her salary is this, and she's currently in good standing. That's all it will say, and it has a recent date on it. Okay. They're very easy to get. It's a standard request in the mortgage industry, for mortgage lending. So in fact, I'm sure your boss or your HR has provided hundreds of these to other people as well. So it's very common for this to be requested. The next thing is a pay stub, very standard, a recent pay stub just to show what your pay is. And then your T4. So your T4 will show how much money you made the previous year. Now, a lot of first-time home buyers come out of school. So a lot of people, they don't have a previous job because they were in school studying to perhaps work in the career now they're in. So I don't want you to think that if you don't have a T4 that a bank won't work with you. That's not the case. So even if you're right out of school and you have a full-time job and you're a salary worker, as long as you're full-time, you can still get a mortgage. You can still buy a home, even if you don't have that T4. But typically, if you have been working for a few years, you will need to show a T4 from the previous year. Now, hourly workers, it's the exact same thing. So that doesn't change up too much there. Now, where it changes up a lot is self-employed. Now, Joseline and I know we work with a lot of investors and we work with a lot of people who are self-employed, including ourselves. So this would apply to us and what we have to show the banks when we apply for mortgages, okay? So the first one is the 2 years notice of assessment. Now, 2 years means the two most recent years. So that would be for right now, 2021 and 2022. Now, what is your notice of assessment? A lot of people don't know what these documents are. Again, that's not a problem. The notice of assessment is a form the government sends you. Basically, when your accountant submits your taxes and how much you earned last year, your assessment will tell you how much money you owe the government or how much money the government owes you, okay? Now, the T1 General is basically the filing that your accountant will submit to get your notice of assessment. So if you're looking for your documents right now and you're really worried, I don't know where these documents are, don't worry. Your accountant can easily provide you your 2 years of T1 and your 2 years notice of assessment if you just give them a call or send them an email. It doesn't matter if you work with H&R Block or you work with a local accountant, they will have this information on record, okay? Another good way to get this information actually is to go to the CRA website and open up an account there. It's completely free to open up an account on CRA and access your notice of assessment whenever you want. It's completely secure and all of your tax information will be there if needed, okay? So we'll go on to the next slide here. Perfect. So right here, the purpose of this slide right here is to show you how down payment affects, monthly payment and amortization, okay? So we'll just go through line by line here and you can see how, as you put more down payment down, obviously you can buy, more of a home. So we start with a annual income of about $80,000. It's important to know that these numbers can be family income. So it could be, let's say, a husband and a wife who each make $40,000 to a combined $80,000, which is completely fine. So with $80,000, you can qualify for a mortgage of about $350,000 with a minimum down payment of $17,500. Okay. I find most people, when they see these numbers, are quite encouraged because, a monthly payment of $1,800, or if you look at the slide below for a $550,000 property, which gets you a very nice condo, right, Joseline, in the Kitchener-Waterloo, Guelph area, $550,000 gets you a very nice condo, is only about $2,600 a month with a minimum down payment of $30,000. So the goal of this slide here is to give you a frame of reference, because you're probably wondering, I don't really know if I can afford the payments. I don't really know what's possible. Well, the reality is, if you're looking at a condo that's $550,000, you're probably going to be spending around $2,400 to $2,500 a month anyway in rent. The big difference being is that you're paying off somebody else's mortgage and not your own. So I hope this puts everything in perspective and really shows that this can be managed with family income or even individual income. And maybe if you want this, this presentation, we can also send it out if you want this frame of reference. But what I would really recommend is that you reach out to Joseline or myself so we can provide these numbers custom to you. It doesn't take us very long to be able to say, you can say, Luke, this is my income, I'm salaried, I'm self-employed, this is my down payment, and I can tell you exactly what you could afford. I can tell you exactly what your monthly payment is, and then you can factor that into your planning, okay? It doesn't mean you have to go out and buy a house right away, but at least you know what's possible. And that's really, again, the whole purpose of this presentation today, to teach you what is possible. Okay, perfect. Oh, I guess that was the last slide there, Joseline. So I'll turn it back over to you. I'm not sure if anybody's asked any questions or if we want to have a bit of a live Q&A, but we'll go from there.
Thank you very much, Luke. I think looking at this slide, what I like about the numbers is that most of them are actually better than paying rent, because I think rent has gotten really expensive. And in most cases, for this 550, for example, most 2-bedroom apartments are like in that range. Yep. So, it's good to see that home ownership is actually more affordable than renting in most cases. Absolutely. And when you think about it, it's because the landlord wants to make a little bit of a profit too. So yeah, it's interesting to look at. Anyway, we have some questions that have been coming through while you were speaking. So I will read them to you, and you'll respond to them. Sure. But the first question is, does having an overseas property count as having a property in the last 5 years?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Okay.
No. So if you're wondering, like anywhere else in the world, the Canadian government will not consider that as an existing property owner. You will be considered a first-time home buyer in Canada, and you will qualify for all of the benefits that provides you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that. Someone asked if we can provide the slides. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be made available. So that is that. If you need the slides, please let me know, because in most cases, we only send out the recording. So if somebody wants to see the slides as well, do let me know and we'll send those to you.
Yep. Or you could even take out, if you want to see this slide in particular, which I know is gets the most interest, just take a quick snapshot with your phone as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Next question, Luke, is what are the incentives that are available to newcomers who are buying a first home? Like, is there any benefit of being a newcomer?
So the incentives to being a newcomer to Canada. Well, the first thing I should state is that to buy a home in Canada, or not to buy a home, but to qualify for a mortgage in Canada, you need to have at least permanent resident status. It's important to know that you do not have to be a citizen of Canada to get a mortgage, but you do need to have PR. But the benefits allotted to you as a first-time home buyer who's a newcomer is the exact same benefits provided to, let's say Canadian citizens who are born here. So if you're a first-time home buyer, you still get from another country, and maybe you recently got PR, you will still get all the benefits provided to you, or the rebates provided to you by the government of Canada.
Absolutely, absolutely. The next question is, does having more than 4 credit cards affect your score?
Nope, it doesn't. Nope, okay. It really doesn't. Again, it's a great question. But having credit is not a downside. Okay, using it responsibly and maintaining your credit levels, it really is. If you could apply that to 6 credit cards, it's not going to hurt you. Okay, just make sure you're keeping those balances at a manageable level and you're paying them on time, and you're good to go.
Okay, sounds good. Next question is, my wife owns a property with her mom, but I'm a first-time home buyer. If I buy a house with my wife, will we still qualify as first-time home buyers?
It's like the answer is yes and no. So you'll still, if you want to use the RRSP rebate, so you want to pull some money out of your RRSP, yes, you can still do that for down payment. Now, since your wife is currently on title for another property, she wouldn't be considered a first-time home buyer, but you would. So that means that when it comes to the land transfer rebate, instead of a $4,000 rebate, you'll get a $2,000 rebate. So you still get some of the benefits. And I think that's really, it's a glass half full type situation. You still qualify for some of them, but not the full amount, because your wife already owns a property.
Okay. Look, if your status in the country is a work permit, can I still get a mortgage in Canada if you're on a work permit?
Unfortunately not. There is some options. I don't want to say it's an absolute no. Typically, it depends on how long your work permit is. It needs to be an extended work permit. And there would also need to be a pretty substantial down payment. And I also want to think, I want you to think about, what it means. Like a lot of people buy work permit. Want to buy, are eager to get into the housing market, which I completely understand under a work permit. But if anything ever does happen and you do have to go home and you bought a property, that could leave you in a bad position because you bought a home here now and you can't service it. So, just for your own protection, I would make sure that you are at least in the process of getting your PR. But even if you're in the early stages and maybe you're currently have a work permit, it doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation and figure out what your numbers are. So when your PR does come in, we can help you get a house. So we can still start this process. We can still work on your file before you got your PR, but I don't think you want to buy a house until that happens.
And look, just to follow on what you said, typically people who buy if for any reason they're good and they can buy on a work permit or study permit, they have to pay that foreign buyer tax, right?
Yeah, yes, that's typically the case.
Yeah.
And also substantial down payment. Normally you would need about 35% down, and there can be other taxes in place. Normally when people do that, it's actually for investment purposes and not to actually live in the property.
Yeah. Okay, so the person is following up saying, what if her husband has a citizenship and she's on a work permit? Can they buy a house together or can it be in his name?
Well, if your husband's a citizen of Canada and you're married in, shouldn't you be able to get your citizenship in Canada or at least a PR status pretty quickly?
Yeah, I think that you're right. Remember, like this happened to one of our clients too. I think sometimes it takes like a year to do the application. But you know what, look, while we're speaking, I'm thinking this is very specific. Maybe we should meet with this person and kind of get into the situation, break it down, because you're right. Sometimes when people are married, there might be a way to get it done. Maybe like even wait for the PR to come in. But yeah, you're right. So I think that, if this is you, book an appointment with us. We're happy to sit down and look into the situation and see what's happening.
Of course. That makes sense.
Okay, so can you share a property by putting a down payment together with someone who's not your spouse?
Yes, you can. Again, maybe a little bit of a specific question because my follow-up question would be, are you planning to buy this house with somebody? Meaning, are they going to go on that title with you?
It sounds like that's what's happening. Yeah.
Yep, you can. You don't have to just buy a house with a family member. You can buy, we've seen examples where 4 friends got together and bought a house together. You don't have to be in a direct relationship to actually buy a house. So if your question is, can I buy a house with somebody else, perhaps a friend who also wants to contribute down payment? The answer is yes, you can. That won't be an issue at all. In fact, your file is looked at just as well as if it was a married couple.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. What are the options to pay down payment? Or what are the options to pay down payment if I don't have the full amount of it? I think this was like at the beginning of the webinar. Maybe you can just like quickly mention them.
So it depends. So again, if you refer to the first slides, again, I know Joseline will share them, but the minimum down payment for a $500,000 property is $25,000. And again, there are markets where you can go lower than that, right? So maybe the house is $350,000, in which the cost is $17,500. So if you don't have that yet, I would suggest maybe what cash you do have, perhaps put it into your RRSP, because then you'll get a bigger tax refund this year, and you can add that money to your down payment savings, right? So that's a great way. Sometimes if you are able to max out your RRSP contributions, depending on what your income level is, you could get a very large refund. I've seen clients receive $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 rebates, and then they just put that back onto their down payment. So I think that's a really good strategy. That's not just continue to save your money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just going to switch back to my phone because I'm switching between 2 systems to get you the questions that have been asked. These are questions that were submitted ahead of time. If I have a student loan that I'm still paying, will that reduce my mortgage approval amount?
It could. Student loans are looked at a little bit more favorably than credit cards. And the reason being is that student loans have lower interest rates than credit cards and lines of credit. It's a complicated answer, but in short, yes, it could, but less than other forms of debt.
Yeah, okay. And I remember when we bought our first property, I think even when we bought our second, both times I had a student loan and that was okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we do mortgages for people who, I mean, if you're a young person, chances are you have student loans. It's, you know,
Yeah.
it's very, very common, right?
Yeah.
To not have student loans typically means you were able to pay for college or university out of pocket, or had family that could do that, which is amazing. But most people in our experience, when they buy their first home, do have some sort of student loans left over, of course.
Yeah, okay. Next question is, it's a very specific question, so I'm just going to pose it to you, but I think the best would be for this person to book an appointment as well. So I'm a student with a part-time job with a 2-year contract, and I earn about $45,000 a year, and I have savings of $80,000. Can I qualify for a mortgage as a first-time home buyer?
Yes, but I don't think I should go in more detail besides that. I think we should connect offline.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I thought too, because there's usually more to the story, right, than we can see, you know, so it's
Of course. And again, you know, a lot of conversation should be had in private as well.
Absolutely. My wife is on a contract job, similar question to the previous one. And I run a business and I earn, so wife makes about 110, husband makes 90 to 160. He's a business owner. They have 100,000 down payment. What can they qualify for? Again.
Call me.
Lots of appointments, right?
Yes. You have options in front of you. You know, with a quick phone call, I can give you all of your options. I can tell you your max purchase price. I can tell you your monthly payment. It doesn't mean you have to go buy right away, but I can give you all that information. So please feel free to reach out if you feel comfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is more like a market awareness question, so I could even jump in on this one. But between Kitchener-Waterloo, Guelph, Hamilton, Milton, and Windsor, where do you think we're most likely going to see the highest appreciation in prices?
Well, I don't know what your take on this, Joseline, is.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and say Windsor.
Okay. Why?
Well, the main reason I say that is, you know, Windsor is a much lower, much cheaper market, and it's also growing quite a bit. There's a lot of development going on down there. It's still a relatively cheap market. It borders with Detroit. It's a big trade route between, you know, the Canada and US.
Yeah.
And for that reason, you know, like for example, you know, a $300,000 property going up $50,000 is a big difference than a you know, $800,000 property going up $50,000.
You're right.
So the relative increase per the price in Windsor, if you're asking me for investment purposes, I think it's a very strong market. I've actually had family that have invested there. They've done quite well. That being said, I mean, you know, Joseline and I, and I'll let her speak for herself, are very fond of the Tri-Cities. You know, out of all 3 cities here, Cambridge, Kitchener-Waterloo, and Guelph, Cambridge is still very affordable. And the prices there, like, I feel like it's not going to be affordable for many more years. I don't know what you think, Joseline, but it's starting to catch up.
It's so true. So the way I was looking at this question is, you're right, that Windsor has the likelihood of going up more. But what I've seen with markets far away from Toronto, you know, Toronto being the center for us in Ontario, is that they appreciate really well when everybody's appreciating, but when things drop, they drop fast. So it's very volatile. What I see with Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, people can actually live here and work in Toronto. You can commute. So even when prices correct, our correction isn't as bad as like properties are in Niagara and Windsor. So I think that It really depends on your goals too. I love Windsor as well, but I would never buy a property in Windsor because I need a property manager there. Like I literally am having to give up my autonomy. I like to be within 1 hour drive from my properties. So all of my properties that I own are literally within an hour drive. I feel like that's a comfortable distance for me. I've seen most sophisticated investors who will buy in the US, they'll buy anywhere, but I think it's also a personal choice. I think for someone who's looking to invest or they care about appreciation, you can get good deals almost in all of these markets.
Yes.
And I think that a market itself is so big that even if we narrow it down, you might be able to get even a much better deal in a market that's closer to where you are. So I think, yeah, I think you're right. Like to answer the question is like, okay, Windsor might go up more, but again, what are you giving up by putting your money there?
Yep. And I also want you to think, it's also important, everybody, we in Canada, we become very fixated on always looking at your house as an investment, especially for your first home.
Yeah.
I really encourage you to look at it as a home.
That's
not everything's always about the money. A lot of people are, young, and a lot of first-time home buyers are young people or young families, or maybe looking to start young families. When you're buying a house, find something you can afford and find something you love. Find something you can make a home, because that's really what matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether your home sells for $20,000 more than it could than another property, you're not going to care if you're miserable there. Okay. So find a place you're happy with.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's correct. Now, the next question is, I'm living in Toronto. I'd like to know which neighborhoods are adequate for first-time home buyers, for somebody who's living in Toronto. Okay, so I think that if I was to take this question, I would say it really depends on your needs. If you live in Toronto and you'd like to buy, in, let's say, outside GTA, and you want to commute to Toronto, then I think some neighborhoods of Cambridge are actually better because they're just off of the 401. So it makes it easy to commute. There was actually another question about that as well. For somebody who wants to commute back and forth between this region and Toronto, I think Guelph is really good. Cambridge is good for commuters because you're just close to 401. There's also parts of Kitchener, like Dune South, like where you are, it's like literally on the 401. So you just literally jump on the 401 and you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't they expanding the GO train lines here as well?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're going to be commuting to Toronto, Dune South might not be the best community for you, but maybe something more on the north end of town. Yeah. Closer to the rail lines there will give you easy access to commute into the city, right?
Yeah.
So that's lots of great options though.
Yeah, and it depends on what people are looking for. Like if somebody's looking to drive, then yes, being on 401 is important. If you're looking to take the train, then maybe downtown is better, so you can jump.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next question. We have questions here, so I hope
no problem.
You can prepare for this. Okay. I read somewhere that Canadian government is allowing foreign investment on real estate again. Is that true? If yes, can I buy my first home with my father who lives overseas?
The question is yes and no. Your father can contribute to down payment. You're allowed to bring a down payment in from another country that is a direct family member. But if your father is employed and earns his income in another country, he can't be on the we can't use his income for the purposes of qualifying for the mortgage. So he can still assist you in buying it, but there are some limitations to what we can use for them.
Yeah. So he cannot be on a mortgage with them.
Well, it applies to, he would have to have PR status or citizenship in Canada, right? But if he's willing to contribute down payment, that we can still use.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yep. It's not uncommon at all. A lot of newcomers to Canada. I work with a lot of individuals from the Indian community, and it's very common for them to bring in money from overseas, from their families or their families' businesses back home to buy homes here. So it's something that we're very used to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look, I have another question here that might also be very specific, but From what you're seeing right now, what is the best bank for a 3-year term?
Ooh, TD
TD?
all the way.
Okay, that's
For
good
the
to know.
win.
What's the rate at?
So it does vary. I would say if you were getting a 3-year term, you're probably, depending on the strength of your file, you might be around that 4.5% range.
Okay.
I don't know if you were here at the beginning of this webinar, but even a month ago they were in the low to mid fives.
Yeah.
So they have come down quite a bit. But among all the big banks right now, from what I'm seeing with the clients that I'm working with live right now,
Yeah.
TD is really the one coming to the table. So
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know.
Yep.
Have another question here. I'm looking to buy my first home, but not sure what to do with the rising interest rates. Prices have fallen, which is true, but rates keep rising. What do you think will happen in the next announcement?
The next announcement, I don't think rates are going to go up. My prediction is I think they're going to hold steady.
Okay.
I think the Bank of Canada has reached their max increase point. I don't think they're looking to increase anymore. I always want to caveat that you never know what's going to happen, but the interest rate increases are directly related to Canada's inflation numbers, our consumer price index prints.
Yeah.
And basically what that means, if you don't know what CPI is or what inflation means, basically it's the rate of increase of the cost of living, right? Food going up in price, gas going up in price, real estate going up in price. So, the Bank of Canada, their biggest way to fight these increased costs, ironically, is to increase interest rates. I know a lot of people might go, well, why increase the cost of our borrowing if everything else is already going up? It might seem counterintuitive, but the logic is that if it costs more to borrow money and to buy a home, we will spend less on other things, which will over time bring prices down. If in economics school, we said we call that demand destruction, or they're trying to cool demand in the market, which is what they've done. I mean, I know you've seen home prices go down as a result of interest rates going up, right?
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if you were here at the beginning of this webinar, but I did quote that interest rates, you're gonna own a home for 25 to 50 years, over the course of your life. The price you buy your home will never change, but interest rates are always going to change.
Yeah.
So, typically I find, if you're on the sidelines and you're waiting to time the market perfectly, nobody times the market perfectly. The best thing you can do is figure out whether or not you could afford what's available today. And if you're in a position where you feel comfortable to buy, just buy, and everything will sort itself out over time. Nobody wins when they gamble on the casino. And if you're waiting to kind of make that proper bet at the right time, your chances are you probably will miss it. And I'm not even just saying this for everyday buyers. I say this for myself too. I'm not smart enough to time the market. Most people aren't.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows what's going to happen, right? So again, like I just said, figure out what you can do today. Figure out what you can afford. Figure out what your max purchase price is, and figure out if you're ready or not.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I think everything else kind of sorts itself out after that.
Yeah.
That's what I would recommend.
I love that you say that, because you know what's interesting? You know how I am, like, I'm a numbers person. I'm always looking at the charts. Guess what? Prices are actually trending up now. So we saw somewhere in December where prices were, I think they bottomed. January, February, and March, the curve is going upwards, like it's pointing upwards. What that says to me, I wish I had that graph to show, but what that says to me is I think we've reached the bottom. For that person who's been waiting for the market to bottom, I think we've reached that. So, I'm glad that you said, like, honestly, timing the market is not perfect. And in most cases, we only see it in the rearview mirror, like after it's happened.
And the reality is, if you're waiting for the next bottom, that could be in 5-6 years from now, right? And the reality is that the next bottom is going to be higher than the bottom we just experienced, right? So again, the chances of you timing it perfectly is really low.
Yeah,
I typically try to avoid kind of telling people when to buy
yeah,
because it's more of a personal choice than an economic choice, right? If you can
yeah,
afford it and you're ready and you're comfortable, go for it. You know,
absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
more so how I believe what I believe.
Yeah, and also knowing what you're looking for, because just saying I'm looking for a deal, that's not good enough, you know. So, just being able to define it. Say, I'm looking for a home, let's say around 700,000, they have to have A, B, C, D. Work with somebody you trust, like a mortgage broker or realtor that you trust, because if you trust these people and they're good people, they will look out for you. They will let you know what a good deal is in this market,
Exactly.
right? We were just talking about this at the beginning. You and I just bought properties, right? We're still buying. We didn't stop because we defined what we're looking for and we're going out there and finding it, right? Now, in a market that's going down, we are more aggressive,
Yep.
but we're still finding what we need and we're still making our numbers work.
And another great example is a few years ago,
Yeah.
I was working with some buyers, first time home buyers, and
Yeah.
it was right when COVID hit and everything was shutting down. Stores were closing. We didn't know if it was the end of the world, right? Everyone was kind of on their toes. I know it all seems kind of silly now, but at that time, we really didn't know what was going to happen. And I had these buyers who put this crazy lowball offer on a property because the sellers were terrified that the market was going to tank. The sellers thought, this is the best I'm going to get. Housing prices are going to zero because this disease is going to come in. And so my clients got this offer at this ridiculously low price.
Yeah.
And what happened right after that? Who would have known the market ripped up? The highest
crazy. Yeah.
record high prices after that. So the moral of the story is don't wait for a pandemic to buy a house. The moral of the story is who could have ever predicted that?
Yeah.
Who could have ever thought that housing prices would go up in a pandemic, right? So you really trust your gut, I would say.
Yeah.
And like you just said, work with people who you trust. Work with people who are just going to work with you at your pace and not push you or into anything or rush you anything. Because really, there is no rush to do any of this. It's all just about being informed, feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
And then pulling the trigger when you feel right. So
absolutely. Yeah. Someone is asking if they can book a consultation with you. We've put a link in the chat box. That is my calendar. I will make sure to communicate those times with Luke, but if you'd like to meet with Luke, please book a consultation. And yes, Luke is a mortgage broker and he's been working with a lot of our clients. So I'm pretty sure he'll find you guys some good solutions for what you're looking for.
If you want to meet Joseline and I in person, we do have a very nice office in Guelph. If you're local, if you're a little bit further away, and maybe it's hard for you to make the trip or you're busy at work, we can always do this over the phone or over Zoom. I don't know about Joseline because she goes and sees properties, but I've done many mortgage deals where I've never actually met the people in person. It's all done over the phone or over Zoom. So that works too,
I think I've done deals where I've never met the people. Can you imagine? Sounds strange, but no, some of my clients are buying from overseas. So I literally am able to help them buy something without actually meeting them.
Yeah. Probably more common in my business than yours though.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. I think it's probably like 1 in 100 I've never met.
But what's crazy too is you can actually close on a home now with your lawyer. You don't even have to go see your lawyer because of COVID. Nobody could go see their lawyer because it wasn't even allowed. So virtual signing came into place, and now you can sign over your computer. So
someone is asking about the London market. They're looking to buy in London. What do prospects look like there?
London right now, I think is very interesting. I'll be honest. I was looking at London myself recently for a property. And there's two reasons for it. Number one, property values have come down quite a bit there. I found it has been subjected to a rather substantial correction, larger than Guelph, Kitchener, and Cambridge. But the other reason is, again, property dependent, is that rents are still strong there. So, if you're looking for something, what I always try to work with people is, buy your home and live in it. But if we can work with you over the years so you can keep it and rent it out and then buy your second home and own two properties, London would be a good place to have that because it will appreciate well. And the rental market's very strong there, right? They have they have King College and they have Western University.
Yeah.
So there is great rental prospects there as well if you ever turn your home into a rental.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah. My brother used to live in London. They still have some properties there.
Yeah.
The market has gone down more than,
Yep.
and I guess this is what we were saying earlier, like these markets that are further away from Toronto are going to be more volatile.
Yeah. Again, it always comes down to the person too. Like if you're looking at a market, let's say London,
Yeah.
and you commute to work, before you worry about whether or not London's a good investment,
Yeah.
can you live with the commute? Are you going to want to, rip your hair out on the drive in every day because it's so long, right?
Yeah.
But as long as it works sense for your work and you're looking for a good deal, I think London's a great idea. I do.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Well, that's all the questions that we had, and we're right on time, literally right on time. So I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone who's still here. Thank you for participating, and thank you for staying till the end. I hope you learned something that will help you achieve your goals this year or next year, whenever you're ready to make these moves. But I'm always happy to see people learn and to see people advance themselves, because that's how we move forward.
Mhm.
So, if you have any questions for Luke and I, as we say, please always feel free to reach out. Otherwise, thank you very much, Luke, for this wonderful presentation. I always love hearing from you because I always learn something new. Can you believe it? Like I've listened to you like million times, and there's always something new to learn. So I thank you for making the time to be here.
Of course. And, Jocelyn, I always feel so special when you ask me to come be on these. I always get the opportunity to talk to so many interesting people, and especially first-time home buyers who, are at the beginning of their journey here into real estate. And I think, that's what it is. It's a journey, right?
Absolutely.
And, I think, Jocelyn and I take pride on trying to remove as much of the stress as possible, through education. And I hope we've accomplished that here today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you everyone for being here, and have a wonderful evening. Hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you, Luke.